That was a really long intro. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I heard some of you stayed out late last night. The band was really good, right? You liked it? That's cool. I want to talk to you a little bit about what I think is about to change in your organization, and why I think you are the people in the organization best suited to lead this change. As of today, and I've never spoken these words out loudly before, so please don't quote me because we are all in a very safe space, right? As of today, management is not a human skill. It is now being moved into technology, and you are at the forefront of this wave of AI agents and frameworks and structures. And overseeing people and delegating tasks is now a part of your technology. And that changes the aspect of what it means to work in a company. And I will talk a little bit about why I think leadership, and particularly anticipatory leadership, is the most underserved skill in any leadership and management team today. So this is your opportunity, from project managers and CIO and IT leads, to take your technological skill and become leaders of change. And I would start with the wonderful German word of Lebendigkeit. It's a word that I want to introduce to the American people and the Asian people, because you know what Lebendigkeit is? It's so much more than just to be alive. It's the vitality of life itself. What it feels like to be something. To be conscious about when you go to work in the morning that you do something. You have an activation, you experience your own experience. And I think that for us today, that particular skill is what we are kind of sort of losing. At least if I look at the German colleagues complaining about the challenges and complexity, we have built a reactive society, where we created social media, a thumbs up, thumbs down society. We are rewarded for a reaction and not a reflection. And now we compete against technology. We need a quick reaction to get followers and likes and business. And that's how we start to communicate. Your opinion, my opinion, zeros and one, a binary world. But the world is not binary. It's highly dynamical. And if we leave it all up to algorithms, it's going to be hard for us to keep up. And when we complain about the challenges of our time, I must remind you, if you were born in 1900, how was your life? Right? When you were 18, 19, something big happened. You experienced a pandemic, they called it the Spanish flu, where 50 million people died. Then you had a First World War. Everyone was suffering. Then you bounced back a little bit in the 20s. And then came a 30% decline on the stock market. And you didn't have 4% inflation. You had 40% inflation. Now you're 20-something, you're 30. You want to build your life, have your home. How is that for a living? And you bounce back from that. You start to build some businesses. The hidden champions, the industry companies are kind of sort of bouncing back. And then you're 40. And then there is 5 years of war. And then you think, now I'm 45. Now I can get on with my life. Then you have the Cuban Missile Crisis and Korea and all the tension that we have. And then you die. How do you live when you were born in 1970 or 80 or 90 or 2000? You live in progress. Never have we lived longer. Never has less people lived in absolute poverty compared to the population that we have. We have grown from 3 billion to 8 billion people. We talk about longevity. Never have we had more wealth. Never in the history of the humankind have you been able to impact your own future more than you can do today. It's the most beautiful time to be alive. We think about the future as something that happens upon us. It's a verb. In the German Duden, you can find it unter Zukünften. Zu Zukünften. It is something we do. And with all this technology, we are now that are want to go to shape the future of our species. Nothing less than what our future will become lies in your hands. Is that scary? Extended, organized human life on our planet. The tomorrow mensch. How are we going to live tomorrow? Remember, we had the Industrial Revolution, we had the old economy, we had the new economy. All we did was to try to test things to see if they worked and see if we could capitalize. If we screwed up, we error corrected. Now, we are racing towards a future where everything you imagine can be created. So it becomes less about, can we do it? It becomes more about, should we do it? And a lot of you work with these German companies, these hidden champions, industrial companies, family-owned, thinking about the economy over generation. And let me share a little history on a woman that is one of these leaders that like to shape the future of business. A couple of months ago, I spoke at a conference here in Germany where all the CEOs of these large middle-class SMBs, hidden champions were gathered. You had 400 billion revenue in the room. And they awarded the Company of the Year award to a company where the CEO came on stage and received the award and wanted to give a laudatio, to give a short speech. And she talked about, how she looks at the world with wars and climate and everything that is going on. And the moderator asked her, "Aren't you worried? Aren't you afraid?" And she said, "The only thing I'm worried about is that we do not do enough." And when I say do enough, things that we decide to do actively, not just react. That wears us out, tears us down, constantly solving tasks, zoom to zombie, just reacting. That we do something from within. And she said then, "Well, I want to also announce that now my children are going to take over the company. It's time to let the young generation take over." So she said, "I've done enough," right? And then she welcomed her children up on stage. 3 of them, 60, 62, and 64 years of age. Because Frau Busch with 94, she had now done enough. That's how I got to learn and know the German economy, the doers, the shapers, and we're going to get that back. And we need to take people that are driven and passionate about technology to create our future, the tomorrow mensch. And it's not about being a naive optimist, the Silicon Valley accelerationism. That's not what I'm about. Nor am I a dystopian negative pessimist saying, "Wow, das wird schwierig. It's going to be difficult." I see this in the realms of possibilism, what technology can do, and what we can use technology and how to build what we have, progress. What is possible? And for that, you need to anticipate future scenarios, to think about the future. Do you think the future will come? Do you think it will stop and stagnate? Do you think we will go backwards and you will have a Nokia 5110? You're probably too young to have the Nokia 5110 and play Snake, right? Do you think that will happen? Or do you think it will continue to go forwards? Yes. All leaders say it's going to go forwards. It's going to continue. But then we react and act as if we would have stagnation. Studies tell us that that is not possible. All right. Well, is it possible tomorrow, maybe? That's the realm of possibilism. It's not naivety. It's looking at trends that are pretty foreseeable, like this. So on the right side of my side here, we have, starting out with Konrad Zuse, 0.0007 transactions per dollar, 1937. Now we're up to 60 billion. That's a linear projection on an exponential curve. Where do you think that will go? Here we have renewable energy. Kind of sort of see a trend, do we? What do you think will happen? I will tell you what will happen. 12 years from now, 10 years from now, we will have abundance of energy. The marginal cost of energy will plunge towards zero. What does that mean for your business model? What does that mean for your company? Plan for progress, dear colleagues. You know the technology. Take that back to the boardrooms, to your strategists and leaders, and talk about the only thing that we human beings are here for, to create positive progress. You and I, we were awarded 2 opposable thumbs, right? To create tools, to create progress. We are created to create. We are thrown into this world to do something. I've never seen a toddler not wanting to get up and start to walk, right? And he falls on his butt, or she stumbles, burns herself. But she wants to continue. And you know why? Because the incentive for change, for progress, for development is bigger than the fear of failing. We don't need failure culture. Germany has fetishized failure culture. Learn how to fail. No, we want performance culture. We want to go beyond. That was Germany about. No one wants to plan for failure. When we screw up, okay, then we learn how to cope with it. And I know the idea, but it's in the negative. When I fly out of Frankfurt this afternoon and land in Amsterdam, I don't want to have a pilot who has been trained on failure culture, okay? When I have an open surgery, heart surgery, I hope I don't have one, I don't want to have a doctor who is perfect with failure culture. I want to have a high-performance culture that functions. And then we have a playground where we find incentive for change. And you know who taught me this valuable lesson in life? My wife. I'm Norwegian, cold as ice. She has Arabic blood, fire. Fire meets ice. Has advantages, but also some clear disadvantages. I'll tell you that. When I talk to her about crisis, and I come up to her and say, honey, we need change management. We need to change. You must change now. We are at crisis. You know what she does? She looks at me and says, are you gone mad? Go outside and sleep 14 days somewhere else and come back when you're normal. Women, you know the concept, right? We need to take it to a place where there is an incentive for change. If I want to do change management, I have to find an incentive for change, something worth getting up for, something worth striving for. That's the possibilism. That's the powerful realm of transformation and change. That is to anticipate a future that you want to build. That is leadership, and it's about progress. The yellow ones were the experts, the ones that sit in talk shows and tell us about the future, the futurists. They told us about predictions of how renewable energy will develop. Solar. The black line is how it happened to come out. So we have a lot of experts, and then we have progress. When I wrote Quantum Economy back in 2018, people said, wow, it's inspiring. You're a futurist. You have radical theories. I'm rewriting the book now because my predictions went all the way to 2030, but have all hit. I didn't see wars in pandemic, but technologically, we are even further than I anticipated. Right? So this is our challenge. Not the high energy cost. That energy might be too cheap. How many of you live in Germany? All right. Energiewende challenge, right? We complain a lot about energy. I'll tell you a little story about energy in Germany. I read that we need 40,000 windmills onshore to serve the private households. 40,000 windmills, right? It takes 8 years to get an approval in Germany. I think we can work on that. How many windmills do you think we have? We need 40,000 to serve all the private households, just with wind energy, which is not the best, but it's possible. How many windmills do we have? What do you think, sir? Make a guess. We need 40,000. 5,000, that's the standard one. You are like the perfect analyst. That's what all say. Yes, we would think 5,000. We have 32,000 windmills in Germany onshore. So we're almost there. The problem is, most of them were approved and built in the 90s and early 2000s. And that's trying to stream your next Netflix film on a 128 KB connection, right? We build different technologies now than we did in the 80s and 90s, okay? So we have all the space. We could basically tear them down and build new ones, and we would be a long ways. So we complain about that, even though technology is there. My dad, he bought his first EV. He called me up last year and said, you know what? All the things that we just saw, right? You can talk to the car. I was like, that's cool, yeah, okay. And then he calls me 6 months later in September last year and tells me, Anders, you know what? I have now had this car for 6 months and I haven't paid for charging once. Whoa, how do you do that? And he said, I only charge on Sundays because in Norway we have a negative energy price on Sunday. So he makes money out of charging his car in a small cold village in Norway. So I mean, you don't necessarily make money because you have the base price that increases, of course, but on that charging you make money. Negative price. How is that possible? Where does this energy come from? What do you think, sir? Where does it come from? In Norway. Minus energy. Hydroelectric. Anyone else? Norwegian free energy. Where does it come from? Oil, yeah, oil. What? We, who are we? Oh, you mean Schleswig-Holstein. Yes, yes, sir. Offshore wind energy. Because we're too stupid to build the distribution in the south, so we have charged it to Norway, and we can sell it off to minus prices so that we could buy back something in the wintertime or whatever. That's called redistribution costs. 6 billion euro every year because we produce too much green energy. And we need to keep all these old technologies and grids and everything running. So we need to get rid of all the wind and the solar. So we sell it off to Sunday to Norway because no industry company in Germany works on Sunday. So the energy becomes really cheap. Is that a technological challenge or a brain challenge? The latter, yes. And that's old technology. We can work on that. That's what we have, progress. And this is what I want you to do when you play with technology. Go out and look at how we're doing it, how much potential we have. This is me coming back to Frankfurt just a couple of days ago. I'm there, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go home, and I have 2 apps. So I'm very happy to see the colleague prior to me talking about how we're going to build freaking amazing cars in Germany. Let's do that. They just sold off that company on the right side to Link. They take care of that mobility concept. On the other one, we have one that some of you might have seen, a Silicon Valley startup called Uber. From the airport of Frankfurt back to my home, I have an option. I can pay 43 to 59 euro Interesting pricing, by the way. Last night you're at the bar and say, do you want a glass of wine, sir? Yes, it's going to cost you between 12 and 18 euro, right? Is that good technology? I don't think so. You have to wait 10 minutes for a taxi. Here you have 24.93 in 3 minutes, and I would argue slightly more precise pricing. Would you agree? But what would you choose? Would you choose a completely new EV, wonderful car for 24.93, or would you choose a 43 to 59 euro taxi and wait 10 minutes? That's reality. And this is free now, and this is Uber. That's how we approach the consumption. If everyone flying would know about this, what do you think the consumers would do? And this is about anticipating future. Where will this go? I ordered the Uber car, and this was free now, okay? So I chose Uber. The car comes up to me, a white new electronic vehicle with a friendly driver, and I see the car in front of me, and on the side of this car, there was an advertisement with a big logo. You know what the logo was? Free now. And I can give you a billion examples if we are lebendig and we wake up and look at these things and what we can do with technology. And this is how I foresee your company changing. And you are going to lead this. You are going to lead this, okay? In the heart is the anticipatory leadership. And it's not about CTO, CMO, CSO, and all of that in the future. It's about 3 interconnected pillars on how every company will run. This is an adaptation from Silicon Valley tech companies that are changing by the hour, as well as how we could look at old traditional companies. So these 3 pillars, forge, efficiency, and investment. Let me quickly walk you through them to give you a slight overview of what this is all about. You don't sell products anymore. Your clients buy them. Think about that, okay? So you have to incubate and forge your clients to become more successful. Google don't sell licenses. They support the company so they grow, so they buy more users. Think about a brewery company, a beverages company. They didn't sell beer and drinks and stuff. They incubated the bars and restaurants. If the restaurants are full, they're going to buy more products. So what did they do? They went to the restaurants and bars and supported them. They were there with the clients. They did market research about what is going to be the next thing. They saw the potential. They were forging their clients to grow, and therefore they came back and built more business. This is the new reality. You work with your clients. You help your clients grow, and you are rewarded with learning. That's a new term for you, for your CFO on investment strategy. It's called ROL, return on learning. That comes back into your organization. The second pillar is investment. Every company, small or large, need to operate like a venture capitalist, like an investment company. You need to invest in new ideas and technologies. On the one hand, you want to build assets so you can have backup in difficult times, or you want to build something that completely blows you up in new business model that you could not think about. When you sit in your company talking about innovation and strategy and building new products, you are very limited. If you operate like a VC and have an investment branch, you are out learning. You have a dynamism. And the third part is efficiency. Every single company today has to be run hyper efficient. That's the management part, operational excellent. If you get everyone to look for efficiency, then you will reduce costs, optimize processes, and you will take the one thing that we are talking about the most, namely sustainability, ESG, the things that we are seeing as a cost today. An efficient usage of resources is sustainable, right? And that's the thing that we are looking at. Efficiency is a driver for profit and a driver for cost reductions. And now you have three pillars that are interconnected, three different teams that fight for the same resources. And if you put trust and leadership at the heart of that, you have friction. And if you want to talk about change, change management, transformation, innovation, it boils down to two very simple things. You need two things: trust and friction. If you have trust and friction, you will have progress. I call this the triangular alchemy of modern business. Take this with you back to your CEOs and strategy officers and CFOs and talk about how you can shape this dynamic organization. Because we are in front of something that we could call an age revolution. Human beings are not resources. You are not to be exploited and used as a resource. We will lose that race against technology. By the end of the year, the first humanoid robots will be rolled out in the consumer market. And from there on, we adapt the new artificial intelligence models when we get bored from large language models and build world models and put that into machines. Then the real change to how we work and how we live start. And today is the time to start anticipating what that actually means. You're not knowledge workers or experts. You are professional amateurs. We got to learn how to learn, to reason, to think, first principle thinking. Human reasoning is a new superpower that we need in the companies today. That's the first R, reasoning. The second R in that journey to creating better problems and progress, because this is something that I think is also for Germany important to understand, because we are obsessed by solutions. Oh, there's a problem. We need a solution now. Your managers, leaders, they put the pressure on the CFO. We need a solution. Realize this and think about this when you go home tonight. We never solve problems. We just create better problems. It's kind of sort of like a vaccine. A vaccine is never a solution to a disease or a pandemic. It's just a better problem than being dead. Right? It's progress. So all you do is based on an assumption. Therefore, we should spend much more time thinking about the problem than about the solution. The second R is human rhetoric. The old Greek rhetoric, ethos, pathos, logos. Start tomorrow and train how you communicate, how you talk to people. That's where you can get impact and meaning. Have a logical explanation. If you struggle with that, throw it into Grok or Perplexity or GPT. They're good at helping you sort out a structured message, the logic. Then we need some ethos, a foundation of values, that you know what I'm all about. What are my values that you can measure me on? And the last one is pathos, some kind of expression where you can get the attention of the people to get them to follow you. Every time you have a chance to speak, go out and speak up. Train your words and how you communicate. The third one is human recognition. We're not all KPIs and numbers and employees and entities within an organization to be optimized. Every single subject in your team is a source for potentiality, a potential, a different person that you can activate. Learn how to talk to people and recognize that. Everything today is about the relationship between the human being. The model of Silicon Valley in US about the Declaration of Independence is a model of optimization where robots and technology will come out winning. What we need today, in Europe is a good place to start with this also, is a declaration of interdependence. I am because you are. It only makes sense to be a mensch, a human being, in relationship to other human beings. So take that back to your teams and think about how you can recognize the other team members. Because at the end of the day, this is what we can distinguish from technology in that optimization game that will just only continue to go. If we can build those relationships between suppliers and customers and employees, at least we have a potential to come up with something new that we can call innovation. So the human relationship is a new HR that I think from your standpoint, coming from a lot of IT and technological structures, that if you train these human superpowers, you will become the leaders of change in your company and for a company that becomes efficient and can operate in that triangular alchemy. Economy is ecology. If you want to create a soziale, ökologische Marktwirtschaft, a social ecological market economy, it starts with one thing. The economy needs to function. In Germany and Europe, we need to understand capitalism and the economy is the operating system of our society. In every company, if there is company is not running, there is nothing to divide. It becomes social if we have a functioning system, okay? And it becomes ecological when economy and ecology become synergistic. And I think when you go home and start to think about what are these business models and potential, just give you some example on how our thinking jumps to a very easy conclusion. So I was invited by one of the larger car manufacturers in Germany at their sustainability conference, and I had the head of sustainability at Lufthansa, at Adidas, and Hugo Boss next to me. And I asked them, and I said, so what do you think will happen? We want to reduce consumption, but you are in a consumption market. And now we want to introduce humanoid robots into our homes. How do you think they will develop? How many of you think we might have a humanoid robot at home doing some kind of stuff over the next, say, 10 years? Anyone? That's not so many. Okay. Robot as a service. We don't need to pay 30,000 euro. We just rent it out and download the apps. I'm looking for the dishwasher app, right? Have a robot take care of that stuff. But once it starts to interact with us, communicate like the large language models that are very simple AI, the start of the race towards some AGI or artificial superintelligence. Once they become more advanced, what do you think will happen? They take care of your mother, train your kids. We build a relationship to these robots. Right? So I asked them, do you think they will all look the same, or will they get a haircut or some cool Adidas sneakers or a tailor-made Hugo Boss suit? When you go on holiday and you build a relationship and giving your robot a name, do you turn it off and leave it at home? Or do you put it in a suitcase? Or does it even sit next to you in the plane? What will human beings most likely do? That's the question. So if you can figure out how humanity might evolve and pair that with technology, then you're in a good space. We are getting 1.3 children in Europe. You know what that means? We're having sex like bunnies, but we're not getting children anymore. And that's a big problem, because in 3 generations from now, there will be no Norwegians. As simple as that. So we don't want to have migration, but we want to get older, so everyone is going to live to become 100 and stop working at 60. Who's going to pay for that? So we need a lot of robotics and automation. And then everyone says the glorification of that is now we can take care of the human stuff. And I said, what the hell is that? Right? Do you think a company that has 60% margin will have 60% margin and can pay all the people? Of course not. Someone will do it for 50%, 40%, 30%, 20%. But this is the future to prepare for. So then we need to think about business models where we can have in this future world. So this is your challenge. Anticipatory leaders, the future of humanity, the tomorrow mensch. This wonderful, beautiful word about the mensch. A mensch is not a reactive, negative human being, a neutral human. It is a positive, active mensch with some kind of integrity. It's a wonderful word. And you will build those models and the structures. Yes, we need big visions and goals and everything. I love it. I was a professional athlete. I love to have goals. But the most beautiful thing is being micro-ambition. What can I do today where I can feel the Lebendigkeit and feel the progress? That I can have an experience of progress. If you run the marathon, it's not about the end goal. It's about the quality of your next step. And you do that over time. Everything in life is Zinseszins, compound interest. It accumulates into progress, health, wealth, and that boils down to your micro-ambitions. Trust. I see a lot of young men today. I see board members come to me that are managers with a big ego. And I look at them and say, is this overplayed insecurity or is this person really authentic? Learn how to trust yourself. If you trust yourself, then you can trust other people. Go out and practice self-trust, your self-worth, and put that into life with your team. If you can come to your team with self-trust, they will notice. And then we should have some fun. Joyful, joyful. Wenn du aufhörst zu spielen, riskierst du erwachsen zu werden. When you stop playing, you risk growing old. You need to get the joy back. Particularly here in Europe, we have so much potential. We have been shook awake from some 50-year-old nap. Now we can start to do stuff. And I'll leave you with one thing. And I experienced this from my career. As I said, I used to be a professional athlete. To many, that was obviously success, right? You looked at the headlines, you scored the goals, and so on and so forth. I built my companies. I had 55 employees. Not bad. To many, that would be success, right? And I was all about that. What everyone else thought about me. What were my goals? What would everything measure from the outside? Everything from their surrounding. I became reactive to the outside world. My success was defined about what the outside world would see. And I got really tired of that because I didn't feel successful. And I think many of you can resonate with that because that wears us down and makes us, need a sabbatical and a retreat and to work less and all of that. Today, I consider myself highly successful. For me, because I'm privileged, I get up every morning and learn. And I get to experience progress. To experience when I've learned something. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about experience that you have grown, that you have learned something. So I want you to write the word interested on your fridge at home. Interested. It turns the reactive part. I answer because I want to be important. I want to convince you. No, I'm interested in what you are about. I seek to understand you because then we can dance. Right? You like dancing? Yes. Then we can do something together, right? We used to have that place in the company, remember, for this terrible pandemic, where we came together and bumped into each other. We had some trust because we worked in the same company. That was a $1 trillion industry. It was called the coffee place, right? Serendipity. Things happened. We talked to each other. Right? We had the trust. We got the friction. And I was curious. I was interested. And the one single thing today in this complex world is that will get you further is that if you are interested, you become interesting. Interested equals interesting. We love interesting people, don't we? People that are interesting. Cool, this is an interesting people. They are interesting because they are interested. So think about that when you get into the next meeting. If you are interested, you will open up, you will build that trust space, and you will get into different views and tap into the unknown. Have fun, and you will become really interesting. I think you're an interesting person right now, Fred, but I think this is like the path to progress. And this is what I discovered, that I become curious and interested about this world, about the foundational question. Is this a simulation? What can quantum tech do? Can we build an artificial human intelligence to keep the consciousness? Can we do all of this? What's your processes? Do you do OKRs or lean management? I want to understand everything. I became interested and curious. And that's the most beautiful thing that we have. To be alive today, to learn and grow. And that's the Lebendigkeit, what it means to be alive. And that is how we can create a becoming organization, a company that was never there, that is not static, but is constantly adapting, because the people in the company are there to learn and grow and do something. Because there's a lot of talk about purpose. And I ask myself, in Germany we have a wonderful word for purpose. Sinnhaftigkeit. What is the sin of purpose? We do all these English words and we put it into categories and want to define it. If we can turn that around and not to try to seek an answer, to find a meaning, to find a purpose, but to put purpose into life, that could be pretty cool, wouldn't it? So what I started to do was to detach myself from the things that I would not want to do, that I did not like. That's kind of sort of like when Michelangelo created the statue of David. He was asked, how did you create this masterpiece? And he said, I just cut out everything that was not David. And this is your life. You remove the things that are not you. You will never find you. Then you become static. So what you want to do is, you want to get into a space where you fill your days, where you do things with intrinsically motivated things to learn, where you fill your life. And then we have an infinite potential. We have an infinite potential to come up with better explanation. And then you take back that agency to live your life. And I think that if you fill your life, not always, life is challenging, but if you start to fill your life with things that you really want to do, then you can live a fulfilled life. So take this Lebendigkeit back to your companies, start to rebuild, to reignite the economy, the businesses, embrace technology. I love technology. But I also love the Mensch. And you are the leaders of change. With anticipatory leadership, I think you guys are best suited in your company, in the project that you are working on, to shape this and to create a better future. Thank you so much. Thank you.